Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain's Brunswick property is located in the Rideout Shear Zone in Ontario, with grab samples running as high as 32 grams per ton gold. A follow-up drill program to test the numerous targets located by recent groundwork will commence later this year. Please visit our website at rmroyalty.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Chris Vermeulen, his website, thegoldandoilguide.com. Welcome back to the show, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jim.
Crude oil seems to be a lot stronger than it usually is this time of year. What's going on there?
Yeah, well, crude oil's been moving higher, trying to break out of this big basing formation it's had, and it really needed to have a break and close above that, more or less the $45 per barrel mark. And we actually got that a couple days ago. We saw crude oil have a nice big breakout and had a follow-through day, the next session. And we've seen a really nice strong rally in crude oil, and it's actually rallied right to the next resistance level that if we were to actually zoom way back on the chart going back to 2005, we saw price actually break down in crude oil from a topping formation. It had a gap down and then sold off in a big way right into late 2015. And gaps tend to get filled, and they also act as resistance. And so what we saw in the last more or less 4 trading sessions, crude oil broke out above this recent high that we saw in January this year. It broke above that, and it ran up, filled that gap that price made back in 2015. It hit the top of that gap window, which acts as resistance, and more or less it's traded sideways yesterday and is trading down today, taking a little bit of a breather. Very bullish pattern still overall, but these technical levels go to show that you can go back in time, 2 years ago and find these levels that are very precise within a few cents, and the price still is focusing and has resistance, support and resistance at those levels. So that's where we're at with crude oil. And the energy sector stocks, the XLE, has finally broken out and had a pop, and it's doing the same thing. It ran up to a Fibonacci measured move. It's pulled back the last 2 trading sessions. Overall, energy and oil look very bullish still. This is nothing more than, I think, a little bit of profit taking, a little bit of just an area for them to take a little bit of a breather before they take the next run up and try and push through these next levels. And I do feel as though they're going to continue to go higher for another week or so.
Is this connected to what's happening in Saudi Arabia, where they appear to be having a soft coup with something like 500 people arrested for corruption, a lot of them pretty high up in the hierarchy?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that plays into this so much. You look at the price chart patterns, these have been unfolding, pretty much back to 2015. So I'm sure most of this price action is very technical based. It has to do with supply demand, where orders have been sitting to be filled. So I don't think it has much to do with news. I think it's purely everything is moving on a technical standpoint from my point of view, because these turning points and breakout levels are being tagged dead on. So news usually doesn't do that. News usually creates some type of intraday or intra-week spike in price that is usually given back, or at least half of the move given back very quickly the same day or a couple of days later. So news is usually pretty abrupt and has a different characteristic.
Do you expect crude to remain strong through what is traditionally a soft period for it?
At this point, I do. It's got very strong momentum to the upside. It's actually increasing in momentum. It's becoming kind of the hot commodity, and I think it's going to get a lot of traction by the end of this week in terms of investors seeing, multi-year highs being established, and it's got room for the next resistance level is up at that $62 level. So we're looking at another $6 per barrel gain here, over 10% move to the upside, and I think it's going to get a lot of traction and perform very well, no matter what the seasonality is right at this point.
Do people like energy stocks because they tend to pay dividends?
They do, for sure. Energy stocks, they do pay dividends. I think a lot of people gravitate to energy stocks and utility stocks when they want the dividend paying out, and obviously it's a nice perk. I know there was a Canadian ETF fund I invested in years ago. I don't own it anymore, but it was an energy based on Canadian stocks, and it had a huge, it was at pretty much at the market bottom of 2009, and it was paying something like a 14% dividend just because stock prices had fallen, dividends hadn't been cut yet, and that was my eye opener to the power of being able to buy underpriced stocks, high dividend paying stocks during a really tough time in the market. If you've got the gunpowder and you're able to reserve, energy stocks are a great long-term investment. Not so much at the top of a bull market, but I mean at the early stages of a bull market starting, they're a great long-term investment because of the dividends.
We'll have more with Chris Vermeulen right after the break.
Aben Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Aben's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at abenresources.com.
I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese, Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Chris Vermeulen. Chris, what's going on in the Russell 2000? What are you looking at there?
Yeah, the Russell 2000 has been showing some signs of weakness and some increased volatility in price, meaning we're starting to see large daily swings in price, and more so we keep happening to see the market gap higher and then sell down on relatively high volume, above average volume. And that to me is a sign that the market makers, the big money, are trying to easily walk the price up in pre-market overnight trading, and as soon as the market opens at 9:30, when there's a ton of market, the most market depth of the day, meaning lots of volume they can sell into, they can try and unload their shares, these small cap stocks, at somewhat of a premium, and sell a lot of them during the day and get out. So that's what it looks like is going on. We're seeing distribution selling in small cap stocks, and they've been putting in a little bit of a topping pattern, and they've been trying to hold their ground for the last 2.5 weeks. Yesterday, Tuesday, they broke down with some increased volume, and we saw continued selling again today. So it looks as though the momentum here for small caps is to the downside, and they're usually one of the first to lead the way lower, along with the transportation index. And if we actually look at the transportation sector, the IYT ETF, it has been moving down, forming a little bit of a topping formation, which I think you and I talked about a couple weeks ago, how it was underperforming. And we usually see transportations and small cap stocks move in sync. And when they are, it usually means the broad market is going to follow suit or sooner than later. And the transportation index has been breaking down. It's been selling off pretty significantly over the last week and a half. And with this breakout in crude oil, it's put a lot more pressure on the transportation index. Obviously, higher fuel pricing is going to hurt transportation stocks. So that is going to continue to apply downward pressure on the transportation index. If the crude oil price continues to rise and jumps another 10%, it could definitely put a big dent and pull IYT transportation stocks down quite a bit.
If transportation stocks start to go down, does that mean people should be worried about the overall stock market?
Typically, because, you know, when people stop transporting goods, it usually means the economy is slowing. and that means fewer things are being sold and earnings decline, and it's usually kind of the first warning sign when transportation numbers are down, the economy is slowing, and that, this to me feels a little bit more like it's energy based, higher energy prices, and energy sector, transportation sectors had a really nice run, so it does need a little bit of a pullback to restabilize. So this pullback in general is still within a bullish pattern. It's still pointing to potentially higher prices, but I think we're going to see lower prices over the next week or so as crude oil continues to try and muscle higher and get pushed deeper into resistance. We really need to see a lot of technical damage, several weeks of selling in these sectors, the transportation and small caps, before any big trend will actually really truly be considered, to the downside. But this is just shorter term price action. Weakness in small caps, transportation seem to be the direction for the next week or so.
Some people have suggested usually when we see a big market downturn, it happens in September or October, and we don't see it this time of year. Could things be different this time around, considering that we've had a bull market for 9 years?
Yeah, obviously anything can happen, and the market always has a way of doing it when you least expect it, and you never know what could come. December is usually a very strong month, but the markets, the equities markets, the large cap stocks, everything to me feels like it is very stretched to the upside. It feels like it's running out of steam, out of energy, and we're going to get walloped with a couple big down days that will definitely cleanse the market and kind of reset things, and that could happen at any day. And, the VIX index, the volatility, hit the same level we saw back in 2007 as the stock market topped. We haven't seen that level hit since 2007, and we're back at these levels, which means no one is afraid of a sell-off. Investors keep buying every single little dip, and they just keep dumping their money into equities. And, when the herd's running one way, you got to wonder. I think the majority of people are in that position. The market hurts the most people it possibly can. And I think it's a ticking time bomb before we see a major reversal. And all these people who have got these massive long positions and lots of leverage to the upside are going to, take it on the chin.
Haven't we had a record level of margin?
We have margin just keeps skyrocketing. We're way higher than we were in 2007, 2008. It just keeps rocketing. And you'd think people would have learned their lesson a long time ago, during the last crash when everybody lost homes and everything. So much money was lost, and the banks especially using the kind of leverage they were using. Here we are again. Everyone's bullish. Everyone's borrowing and leveraging as much money as they can to keep throwing into equities. The margin accounts for trading is huge. And, people, it's psychology. People's psychology really doesn't change a whole lot. It's simple fear and greed. And these major bull markets and bear markets in the stock market are just giant herds of people all thinking the same way, feeling the same way, doing the same thing until the music stops. And they kind of run during extreme points. Here we are, what I think is almost a euphoria state in the stock market. Everyone's frothing at the mouth to buy more and buy every dip. And, probably a year from now or so, people could all be panicking and never want to touch the stock market again and angry at their advisors and all that stuff. So we're screaming at this kind of euphoria stage, and I think it's going to be really interesting the next year in the stock market.
We'll have more with Chris Vermeulen right after this.
I'm Brian Fowler, president of Blind Creek Resources Limited, listed on the TSX Venture Exchange, ticker symbol BCK. Blind Creek is focused in the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and British Columbia. The company's key property is the Blend Project, one of the largest undeveloped lead zinc silver deposits in Western Canada, plus plans to advance the recently acquired, fully permitted historic Engineer gold mine in the Atlan District of Northwestern BC. Check us out at blindcreekresources.com.
Keep informed. Receive our weekly recap of thought-provoking articles, podcasts, and radio delivered to your inbox for free. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage, HowStreet.com. Welcome back. We're speaking with Chris Vermeulen. Chris, if people are starting to feel nervous about the stock markets perhaps reaching their peak, will they be reaching out to gold and silver more?
They will. A lot of people got burned in that last. We're still the markets are still trying to recover. The precious metals market. A lot of people really got beat up real hard with this multi-year downturn. Obviously, 2011 was the top for gold and gold miners, and people have lost their shirts. It's been a bloodbath, but time heals all wounds, and eventually I think we'll see people flow back into that. Now, I do feel as though a huge group of these people who focus on precious metals are moving on. I know a lot of people have gotten burned with the mining stocks, and people are moving on to a whole new breed of investments, which are the cryptocurrencies. A lot of gold bugs and people who trade the gold miners, they love more or less, gold mining stocks move fast. They can move hundreds, thousands of %, and it brings in a certain group of people, and cryptocurrencies are moving like that, or even moving more than these gold miners, and it's pulling a lot of these people who like really crazy speculative plays, lots of leverage, they like to gamble, and I think a lot of money is flowing into cryptocurrencies, and precious metals I don't think quite have the exact same shine as they used to. I think there's other alternatives that are more interesting and lucrative and leading edge that people kind of like the feel of getting into. So, again, I think precious metals will do very well, but I think we've lost a good chunk of the buyers of precious metals, or a good chunk of the capital that would be going into the precious metals, to cryptocurrencies.
You don't have to pay storage fees for cryptocurrency. It's on your computer. Although I have heard people have already literally thrown out fortunes by getting rid of their computer, not realizing their cryptocurrency was on it.
Yes, it is a very interesting and somewhat complex world to how to deal with it. And if you lose something, you cannot get your money back. There's these tokens and codes and files you need to keep. So it is definitely not for you got to be a little tech savvy until something kind of matures and makes it a little easier, or you probably need to take a cryptocurrency course, because currencies, each one is a little different. You need a different type of wallet, all these things. So yes, they are high risk. They're a little tougher to trade, just because they're of the unknown. There aren't a lot of people you can just turn around and say, hey, can you help me with this? You can't just call a broker. These are all kind of privately run / no one's really running them. You just figure it out and follow the forums and the groups. So it's very unknown still, and you have to be very aware that any information you get when you create a wallet, you better print it off and take pictures of it and save it on your phone, save it on a flash drive, print files off, because you got to make sure you can retrieve that money if your computer crashes, gets stolen, burns, whatever.
And if we take a look at the natural disaster that hit Puerto Rico, with their power out still for most people, if you had everything sunk into cryptocurrencies, how could you access your wealth?
Yeah, right, exactly. Yep. But, it's the same thing if you have a massive crisis. The banks just shut down. They let you take $50 a day if you can even get to the front of the line by the end of the day. There's flaws with all kinds of stuff. If technology is down, your credit cards won't work. But I hear what you're saying. But if there's no power, you can't use credit cards either, and that's what most people rely on, credit and debit.
Chris, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Hey, always a pleasure, Jim. Thanks for having me on the show.
My guest has been Chris Vermeulen, his website, thegoldandoilguy.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet, where they've doubled the amount of characters, by the way, that you can use on Twitter now. Comments or questions for the show can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at talkdigitalnetwork.com. HowStreet.com Radio is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.